Prime Minister Modi has taken charge of a third consecutive term. Officials at South Block gave the Prime Minister a guard of honour as he walked in to resume office a day after he was sworn in. The Prime Minister's first move after taking charge was to authorise the release of 20,000 crore rupees under the 17th instalment of the PM Kisan Nidhi scheme. The disbursement had been delayed on account of the Model Code of Conduct. The 72-member Council of Ministers, including the Prime Minister, Anish Shah, Rajnath Singh, JP Nadda, Nitin Gadkari and Nirmala Sitharaman taking oath yesterday at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is 9 short of the maximum permissible strength of 81. The allocation of portfolios is still awaited. Representing corporate India at the swearing-in ceremony were Mukesh Ambani, who sat next to Shah Rukh Khan. Gautam Adani also in attendance. The swearing-in ceremony. We also saw actors Akshay Kumar, Kumaramangalam Birla, Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekharan were also present at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So what does corporate India expect from NDA 3.0? Joining me now to discuss all of that and more is the president of FICCI and the group CEO and managing director of the Mahindra Group, Anish Shah, who was also present at the swearing-in ceremony. Anish, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. We are still waiting for the announcements to come in as far as the portfolio allocation is concerned. The first cabinet meeting of the government is going to start very shortly. But overall, on the back of what we saw yesterday with 72 ministers being sworn in, it seems like there is more continuity than change, at least if you look at the cast of characters. We don't know whether responsibilities will change or not. Anish, your first reaction on the Council of Ministers?
Shireen, great to be here with you. And there is continuity in change. With the new government coming in, it is good to see many of the ministers who were there being sworn in again. It remains to be seen whether many of them will keep the same portfolios or not. I had a chance to interact with some of them yesterday, and was good to see everyone very upbeat. It was an amazing ceremony, and I think we are headed in the right path. We've seen a lot of progress over the last few years, and stable government will only help India go toward its goal of Viksit Bharat.
Yes, that goal, of course, continues to be on the table as far as NDA 3.0 is concerned. But Anish, let's talk about prioritization as far as the government is concerned. You know, as our colleague Parikshit was reporting a short while ago, that the process of consultation for the full budget is already underway. And a lot of the recommendations and the feedback that have come in, for instance, suggest that there needs to be a review of the PLI schemes. Many of the PLI schemes are now getting closer to their 5th year as well. So a review likely, and perhaps the government may want to consider PLI schemes that encourage or incentivize more participation of the MSME sector. You know, how would you read the possible changes or the possible tweaks to existing schemes like the PLI scheme?
Shireen, in discussions that FICCI has had with the government, they are looking for transformative growth over the next few years. Now, whether the election result and the coalition government changes the transformation agenda, it's too early to say, but that seems to be the plan. On PLI schemes in particular, they were meant for specific stimulus, and I would say that we should always be hesitant to just ask for a stimulus. The question is, what is good for the economy long term? And as we think about that, manufacturing has to be a mainstay for us. We have to be able to make in India for the world. What does that mean? That means we need a lower cost of doing business. We need greater ease of doing business. We need a quality standard that will make India among the best in the world and known for the highest quality goods. These are the kinds of things that the government should drive going forward with a series of initiatives. And these are some of the discussions that at FICCI we are having with the government.
Okay, you know, speaking of discussions, Anish, one of the conversations that has picked up steam post the election verdict is whether we are going to see a change in approach as far as policy making goes, specifically to address the rural economy. You know, some read the mandate as a mandate of rural distress, and that reflecting in the way that Bharat has voted. Do you anticipate, or do you believe that there is a need to change policy to address perhaps the rural economy?
On that, if we look back over a slightly longer period, rural India has done very well for a couple of years. And yes, there has been some distress for a couple of years after that. I'm not sure whether it requires a significant policy change. The distribution of rainfall last year played some role in that as well. This year promises to be a much better rainfall. We'll see if that works out. And if it does, then rural India should be in much better shape. We're starting to see some green shoots there from a Mahindra standpoint as we look at tractor sales. And therefore, I would not paint it as a picture of doom and gloom in rural India. I think there has been some distress, there has some green shoots now. And overall, I'm optimistic that things should move forward well. It may need some interventions, but not some dramatic ones.
Okay, some interventions, but no dramatic interventions required. So this perception or this expectation that we could see a big shift or a big focus on the rural economy by way of incentives and so on and so forth, you're not putting too much. You believe that perhaps not the need of the hour as of now. But Anish, you said that there are green shoots emerging as far as the rural economy is concerned. But as we look at growth from here on, and we've seen a very strong number coming in for Q4, and of course the RBI has also upped its forecast as far as growth is concerned. What is the expectation? What do you believe will be the triggers or the levers to continue to drive growth?
I think the next trigger has to be private capex. And the reason I also shared earlier that it's not really about incentives is because incentives will have a limited impact. The multiplier effect is low as compared to capex, which will have a much higher multiplier and a much greater long-term impact. And that's what the government has done for the last few years, and which is where we've given them a lot of credit. We're not surprised at the growth number that we've seen for Q4 and for the year. In fact, FICCI was the first to say it should be 8%. This was way back in December. And we continue to be bullish about the future. I think what will drive it going forward is now private capex that has lagged in the past. And as we see capacity utilization going up across industries, and we see a greater level of demand that's coming in, hopefully with the green shoots in rural, that should help. That should all translate into greater capex from a private standpoint.
Well, private capex, of course, that has been Nirmala Sitharaman's big ask. And I know that you were there in attendance when she continued to sort of ask that question, that what more can the government do to unleash the private sector's animal spirits? We've really done what we could in terms of providing incentives. But Anish, you said that consultations are underway with the government. Of course, we saw the interim budget and now the government has the opportunity to present the full budget, which we expect will perhaps be on the 8th of July is what we're given to understand. Of course, we are still awaiting official confirmation. What would the expectation be, taking forward what the interim where the interim budget left things? What would the expectation be for the full budget this time?
So we've seen the past two budgets being growth focused on investment, a lot less with regard to incentives and SOPs. And that is what we'd like it to be, and continue on that path. In fact, hopefully accelerate that path. Focus on manufacturing in terms of lowering the cost of business. As I said earlier, improving the ease of business. Focus on more aspects around farm prosperity. And this is when we come back to rural. I think there's a transformative change required in terms of how do we have the entire process from farm to fork streamlined? How do we have cold chain storages as part of it? How do we reduce the wastage that we see in food? I think that is a transformation waiting to happen. Thinking about women-led development, that's one area, I know Shireen is close to your heart as well, is something that's very important for us as a country. And the fourth area I'd look at is sustainability. And how do we lead the world in terms of creating green solutions and investing in them?
Yes, I would imagine that we will continue to see some of those being focus areas for the government. Of course, the climate transition and renewable energy, women-led development. Parikshit reporting today that there could perhaps be some more thinking on what we can do as far as encouraging women entrepreneurship, etc., is concerned. You're absolutely right. That is something that is close to my heart, and I know that it is something that you're championing as well at FICCI and at the Mahindra Group. But Anish, we're still waiting for clarity as far as portfolio allocation is concerned. But on the export side, and there continue to be challenging headwinds for the global economy. The markets globally continue to be strong and are doing well. The US economy continues to look strong as well. We've seen the first rate cut coming in from the ECB. How do you see the export story playing out, and would there be anything specific on the table from the government on that front?
There again, I'd look more for long-term transformation than something in the short term. And for exports, we need to build high-quality products in India that are competitive from a price standpoint globally. If we can do that well, we will automatically have a very strong export story.
Speaking of exports, I know that that's something that you're hoping to drive as well as an engine of growth. But going back to the point that you were making about private capex, and I know that under your leadership, the Mahindra Group has certainly decided to rev up the engines on that front. Given the visibility that you have in terms of demand across your various businesses today, Anish, how confident do you feel about perhaps reviewing on the upside your capex plans?
So, Shireen, we've just announced 37,000 crores of capex, and that is a significant jump from what we've done before. It is a function of the strength we are seeing across businesses, and if we continue to go on the path that we are going, we will look at more. We will launch our Born Electric products starting January next year, and that should be a very exciting set of products for the customer.
You spoke about electric products, Anish. We're waiting to hear from the government on the tweaks that perhaps will be brought in as far as the FAME scheme is concerned. We perhaps will see a curtailing of the kind of incentives that the government has given industry so far, and more may be on the table as far as the charging infrastructure side of the story is concerned. How do you see the EV ecosystem building itself out, and what more would you like to see in terms of facilitation from the government?
I think the key question is, as you said, the EV ecosystem now. I feel that the government has done what it needs to from an incentive standpoint, and we have in fact been open in saying that to the government as well. For four-wheelers, we have the incentives that are appropriate for the industry. Nothing more may be required on that front. For three-wheelers, it will still require some level of stimulus because that is an industry that is moving very rapidly to electric. We had our portfolio move from 0% electric to 52% in little more than 2 years, and that is an industry that will really move to electric very quickly. So not much more on the incentive front. What we need to do as an economy is focus a lot more on the ecosystem, which is around charging, which is around financing solutions, and ensure that there is greater certainty that's provided for financing, or there are some other mechanisms to enable that as well. And it's ensuring that all other aspects of that ecosystem are covered so that it becomes easier for the consumer to take an electric car. We don't want a consumer who loves the electric car not to be able to take it because the ecosystem is not in place.
Yes, that of course is a challenge, and one that we have to contend with, not just here in India but globally as well. The charging infrastructure is a point of pain and friction as far as the electric transition is concerned. But Anish, what's the wish list from FICCI, specifically from an MSME point of view, but also for large corporations like yourself, as we get ready for Modi 3.0 or NDA 0.1, because this is the real coalition government that we are going to see in operation?
So the wish list for FICCI is on the 4 points that I had outlined earlier. First is around manufacturing, make in India for the world. Help us bring the cost of manufacturing down, help us build very high quality products, make it easier to do business. Second, on women-led development, There are a number of initiatives that we've outlined for the government. Third is on farm prosperity. And the fourth is on climate change and sustainability. That is the set of items that we have in our wish list as an industry.
Specifically on farm prosperity, Anish, what is FICCI proposing that the government address or the government look at and consider at this point in terms of intervention?
The main area of focus is on farm value chains. How can we streamline the value chain? How can we make it more efficient overall? And therefore that improves the quality of the produce, that improves the selling price for the farmer, that reduces the wastage and gets fresher products to the consumer.
Are there any sectors in specific at this point in time, just a pulse check of FICCI members, where there is more confidence about growth, about demand? And are there pockets where there is still some concern about demand resumption?
I'd say that, in fact, that's not just FICCI, but even as I look at the Mahindra group, we are seeing a lot of bullishness in the automotive sector right now. Tractors with green shoots in rural India started the year well, and hospitality continues to be growing at an amazing clip, very high occupancy rates. The real estate sector is booming. So there are multiple sectors that are doing well. FMCG overall has had a little more weakness, again, more driven by the rural distress that you mentioned earlier. Hopefully that turns around. But on balance, I think we are pretty well positioned as a country.
Well positioned as a country and well positioned as a conglomerate as well. But Anish, any new, I know when we last spoke, you said, look, we have our hands full at this point in time, and we want to consolidate what we've already got and build on that. But, given the focus of the government on new sectors like semiconductors, etc., could those potentially be areas that you may want to consider looking at?
So I don't have a specific answer for you on that, Shireen, because there isn't one at this point. What I can tell you is the criteria that we're looking at. Yes, we are looking at one new area that we will get into. It has to be one where the Mahindra brand, as well as what we have to offer, can make a significant difference. It has to be one that can be built at scale, one that we can deliver outsized returns based on the values that we bring in, and really leverages our strengths. So we are evaluating a number of areas at this point in time. We will not go into it lightly. If it makes sense, we will, because we have to then deliver the commitments we make to our investors. And therefore, it may take some time. But that's the path we're following right now.
Are we likely to see you make that decision on what that potential foray could mean or could be in this financial year or this calendar year?
If everything goes well, then possibly. I'm not going to commit on that at this point, Shireen, because more important is to make the right decision on it. What we have started doing already is investing in our current businesses. And we've got some very strong businesses across our growth gems as well. Incidentally, our growth gems have already grown 5x in valuation over the last 4 years. And we are targeting another 5x growth over the next 5 years. So we've got a great set of businesses. We are investing in them right now, which is why there isn't a pressure on us to be able to say that we have to do something more. I think we are on a very strong path, and if something more makes sense for us, we will do it. If it doesn't, we won't.
Right. Anish, before I let you go, as you pointed out, you were at the swearing-in ceremony last evening, and of course, 8,000 people there watching the government being sworn in, 72 ministers being sworn in. As you watched that ceremony, what was the thought going through your mind, Anish, as you saw that array of ministers being sworn in?
I think first, just the location and the way it was set up was amazing. To be at Rashtrapati Bhavan in the evening with the lights there, it's an awe-inspiring experience in itself. And then to see the government coming in with a familiar set of ministers who've been there before, and in that sense, what you started with the continuity factor in this change is, I think, a very positive thing. And to have a large part of corporate India there, to have such a large group behind it, it was just an amazing experience.
Well, Anish Shah, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us today to take us through the expectations that you and FICCI have from the government, the priorities that you would like the government to focus on as far as the budget is concerned, and of course, unleashing the animal spirits of the private sector. That is the hope, and that certainly will be the expectation that the government has of industry. We look forward to speaking with you again when there is clarity on, of course, who gets which portfolio, and then, of course, as we head closer to the budget and on the budget day itself. Anish, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV18. NDA 3.0 still loading. We are going to be tracking that and more. We're taking a short break, but we're back in a moment with more.